34-year-old man from Limpopo appeared at the Atteridgeville Magistrates Court. He is facing charges of 12 counts of murder and 13 counts of attempted murder. It's alleged that in the early hours of the 6th of December 2025, at approximately 4 in the morning, the accused was at a tavern, Saulsville Hostel, where him and 2 of his accomplices allegedly shot and killed 12 people and attempted to kill 13 others. The police are now giving a briefing. Let's listen in.
The informant of which we got the information through one of our investigating officer who is here in Atteridgeville, and of course crime intelligence. We ultimately intercepted this particular individual in Polokwane as we activated the tracker team for Polokwane, and we ultimately arrested this particular individual in possession of unlicensed firearm. The individual then made a confession, and that confession was presented before the jury in Polokwane, which was admitted so. And out of that confession is where it came out this individual is indeed linked with the mass shooting in Saulsville, Atteridgeville. The firearm was then taken for ballistic or scientific processing, and ultimately, with those evidential material we collected from Saulsville Hostel on the crime scene, it confirms, based on scientifically so, that that firearm is one of the firearms which was used in the shooting, which ultimately resulted in a 12 fatalities, 13 people were admitted in hospital. Yesterday appeared once more again in Polokwane, of which the matter is postponed to the 19th. And today appeared here for the murder of 12 people and attempted murder for 13 people. The jury here have clearly indicated, as and when it closed the case, to say the matter is postponed to the 23rd of February, with the possibility of taking that case and putting that case with this one, so that those cases, they can be worked jointly. I must just indicate that in terms of the mass shooting, we are still looking for other 3 suspects, as I took the briefing intensively. But this case, out of this mass shooting, is emanating from, I would say, the splinter group from the main person who died in 2023, and his murder is still under investigation by us, because he was shot and killed. The splinter group ended up having 2 cases on the 3rd for a murder, an attempted murder, on the 3rd of December. And the very same day, we had again another murder, an attempted murder, of which on the 2nd case of murder and attempted murder, we also still looking for another suspect. But this case is not necessarily the case for the mass shooting. The mass shooting, we are indeed still pursuing 3 of the suspects.
Thank you, General. Questions?
Thanks, General. Tony speaking from ENCA. I just want to confirm, you said that he made a confession in Polokwane. Just clarity on the confession. There was a confession that was made that has been submitted.
Yes, of course. He was arrested on the 21st of December, and he subsequently appeared in Polokwane for possession of unlicensed firearm. On the 22nd, and on his appearance, there was a confession which we have sourced, and that confession was presented, and this confession ultimately had a link in terms of the mass shooting in Saulsville, in Atteridgeville Hostel. But further than that, we took that firearm for scientific analysis, ballistic purposes, and in terms of collection of the evidence material on the crime scene. That firearm is linked, one would say, This is one of the firearms which was used on the commission of the 12 murders and 13 attempted murders.
Are you able to say if he specifically mentions that he was involved in the shootings? I don't know if you can give us that. Does he actually say he shot the people?
Well, let's wait for the court proceeding to proceed. Otherwise, we'll end up now giving a lot of information to say he is saying he's involved in a shooting. But yes, of course, on the confession, he have made a reflection that he was in that crime scene, and the firearm found in possession. It is the firearm in terms of the ballistic outcome which had confirmed to say that firearm was indeed used on the commission of that mass shooting.
Do we know, General, what the motive of the incident was? I believe that previously you said that it could be related to taxi violence because of one of the suspects.
Well, it's a complex issue, as I've indicated on my main brief to say. In 2023, there was one leader who was the main leader in terms of these groupings. The groupings was involved in quite a number of things. One of the other things is the extortionist, for example, linked to the issues of the businesses or the spaza shop. So ultimately that particular person died. All these people, they were belonging to that group. And then the splinter group came out when one of the leaders out of that group was shot and killed on the 3rd, and 2 attempted murders. On the very same day, another murder took place somewhere next to the spaza shop, where one of the splinter group was shot but was not killed. He ultimately died on the 5th. And out of that, that's why I'm saying we're having another suspect of which we are looking into in terms of that murder and attempted murder. And on the 6th, then these people, they were looking for another hit. In other words, looking for another person who might not be associated with this grouping into that space. On their arrival, they realized that one of their friends was killed, and that's where this issue of the mass shooting has occurred.
Okay, just for my clarity, so you're saying that they were looking for someone else not related to this, then they realized that a friend of theirs had been killed, and then they started the Saulsville situation?
Yeah, based on the information, it's just like that. It's just that you can't reveal too much on this case. This case is still sub judice, but the fact of the matter is that shooting came out or culminated out of the groupings. The main person who was in charge of the grouping, all these people whom we got 2 cases for murder on the 3rd, of which one person died on the 5th on one of the attempted murder, which became murder. There are people who are for that main group in 2023. But on the nutshell, it's relating to this grouping, it's relating to the extortionists. Extortionists, for example, one will say the issues of collecting, these monies from different business setups. So on the main, this has resulted because of that main grouping, which ultimately have given rise to 2 murders prior to the 12 murders on the 6th and 13th.
We come out of that briefing for you, and that's the Gauteng Police Provincial Commissioner, Tommy Mtombeni. They're just giving an update on the sidelines of that court appearance of a 32-year-old man who appeared at the Atteridgeville Magistrates Court, who's facing charges 12 counts of murder and 13 counts of attempted murder. I'm told we've re-established that connection. Let's try again and listen into that media briefing.
He is partially part of this group, but when he was arrested, he was en route to Polokwane, to Polokwane. So that is what we know. But to say, does he stay here? One would say obviously, but we did not determine that because that information is privy with the investigating officers.
Do you know why he was going to
Of course, I will say for obvious reasons. If you know that you have committed crime, you'll have to look ways and means of running away from the places where you have committed crimes. So, for obvious reasons, one would say he was evading, of course, the arrest. But it ultimately happened that he was arrested.
So he's not from, just from our case, he's not from Limpopo, it's just that he was possibly getting away from here.
Well, that one we did not make a confirmation right, whether it's from Limpopo, but his surname is related to people who are from Limpopo, if one may say that. Though the other suspects, the surname is not related to Limpopo, but his surname is related to people who are from Limpopo, but I cannot confirm to say he is a Limpopo citizen or not. That's why the postponement to the 23rd of February, one of the reasons is that we still have to look for the identification parade. We have not yet conducted the identification parade, but the ballistic confirms the firearm in his possession.
What's the reason for not doing the identity parade?
Come again?
What is the reason for not doing the identity parade or not being able to conduct the identity parade?
I would say for a simple reason, as I was sketching out the brief, I was arrested on the 21st in Polokwane, appeared in court on the 22nd, and subsequent to that, me and you and the other people, there was a long weekend, and out of that we came back yesterday, and yesterday he was in court in Polokwane. And today here we are, he's in court in Pretoria Magistrate Court. So you can see the unfolding of the events. So I think this will give time to the investigating team to ensure that they deal with the issue of identification parade. But the other thing is that when you do an identification parade, you don't just wake up, you say we are doing identification parade. You have to make sure that the witnesses that are there, you might find that some of the witnesses that are out of the province. So you can't say, I'm going to hold identification parade if the witnesses are there. Then it will not make any sense. And obviously we don't wake up and then we just do identification parade. It does not work that way. Yeah.
I just want to know, are the police still looking for the killer, or because you said this suspect is not like the one who shot? So are the police still looking for the person who pulled the trigger or what?
You can't say this person is not linked to the killers. The ballistic scientific investigation confirmed that firearm was used in Saulsville Atteridgeville Hostel. So you can't say the firearm is not used. We collected evidence there with our specialists. Those evidential material were taken to forensic. When we get this firearm, they've undertaken a scientific process. A scientific process confirmed that firearm was used. How can I say this firearm is not used on the commission or on the shooting? So, but I cannot say exactly, explicitly, this firearm was used to kill this particular individual, was used to kill that particular individual. But the scientific ballistic outcome confirms that that firearm was used.
No, I wasn't using about the fire. Okay. I wasn't
How long does
asking.
the ballistics test take, just by the way?
Come again?
How long does the ballistics testing take, especially since we're also waiting on the other mass shooting?
Well, we had to do a prioritization of this case. The issue of saying how long, I will not give you a definite answers because you might ask me in some other cases because I don't know whether there will be other cases, and I don't want to be found wanting to say about this case, that case, but this case we know for the fact affected most of the South Africans. I think it's the first time in my career I have 12 people fatally wounded in one crime scene. 13 people get admitted in hospital, a total of 25. So we have, of course, to do the prioritization, but the duration is not something which I can exclusively indicate unless if I interact with my colleagues, those who are working in the ballistic section or people who are responsible for forensics.
Nkolisi, there you have it. Nkolisi. We hear that the case has been postponed to the 23rd of February, whereby they still need to do an identity parade, and also it looks like this is a very complex case, which is why we're also not allowed in court. But we did hear the commissioner giving us an update as to what really happened, and that this very same suspect did appear yesterday in court, and also he was apprehended in Limpopo. But I think we need to see what's going to unfold in February, because we hear that there might be possibilities that he is not linked to the shooting, but the gun that he was using is the one that has been linked to this shooting, as they did some ballistic test to the gun, and they did show that the test did show that indeed it was involved in this mass shooting. For now, Mkolisi, I think I'm going to hand it back to you in studio, and we see that the community members, they have gathered in numbers out here. We'll try and engage with them and hear what they feel, because even last week they were not allowed inside court. We have seen others, they are very angry about this situation. They wanted to see who this suspect is, and so we'll keep on engaging with the community members and hear what happens, and we'll keep on updating the viewers at home. For now, back to you in studio.
Nonhlanhla Njengela is our reporter working that story for us. Thanks so much for that update.